The top 5 reasons people don't escape the narcissist. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The dynamic between a narcissist and their victim takes differing forms dependent upon the position that the individual holds within the fuel matrix of the relevant narcissist. For instance, somebody might be a tertiary source. In such respects, they're not really affected that much by the behaviour of the narcissist, and invariably it might be a one-off interaction or infrequent interactions that occur between that tertiary source and the narcissist which are not particularly meaningful or problematic. So, for example, a waitress might serve a narcissist in a restaurant and they never meet again. It isn't a problematic interaction. Or the narcissist buys his newspaper on a daily basis from a man selling it on the corner of the street. They nod hello, occasionally say hello, and that's about it. That's the extent of the interaction. It goes on for years, but it isn't problematic. There isn't really anything to escape from in such circumstances, and thus the concept of escape isn't really applicable to that of the dynamic between a tertiary source and a narcissist. With regard to secondary sources, which might be family members, friends, affair partner, lover, someone that's been dating a narcissist, there is the potential for escape. These individuals are dealt with through the shelf dynamic, whereby the narcissist will take the individual off the shelf, deal with them for a period of time, pop them back on the shelf, and then not bother with them. The victim may try to prompt interaction with the narcissist, but that's often not successful. And in such instances, escape can be somewhat easier as a consequence of the fact that the level of interaction between the narcissist and the victim is not as substantial, and in such instances it may be largely benign. The instances where the issue of escape becomes most prevalent, of course, is that where there is a primary source, and most notably the intimate partner primary source. This is where the traditional concept of escape comes to the fore. Accordingly, whilst the concept of escape is applicable to, for instance, ending a friendship with a narcissist, ending a working relationship with a narcissist, no longer having anything to do with a familial narcissist, in its purest form, the concept of escape is one which is applicable to the dynamic between a narcissist and an intimate partner primary source. Those of you familiar with my work will know that as per that dynamic, there are 3 potential outcomes. Most common is where the narcissist disengages from the victim. If certain circumstances cause that, watch my video, The 5 Reasons the Narcissist Leaves You, or the 5 Disengagement Triggers. The alternative is that the victim escapes. That is a rarer outcome. And then the third outcome is that there is neither disengagement nor escape, and the relationship trundles along until one of the parties dies. The rollercoaster existence of devaluation, respite period, devaluation and respite period. Many people realise that they're dealing with an abusive person. Many people recognise that they're dealing with somebody that is problematic. Often they will happen upon material which tells them that they, yes, are involved with a narcissist. They may have found it on the internet. A therapist might have told them, a family friend might have directed them to the information, or a Tudorite has brought them knowledge and insight. Nevertheless, notwithstanding a recognition that they're dealing with a narcissist, they still fail to escape. Why is that? Well, you might think that commonly it's because the narcissist stops the victim from escaping, that they issue preventative hoovers, that the narcissist either senses that escape is pending, or that the victim makes the mistake of saying, "It's over, I'm leaving you." And thus the narcissist takes steps to prevent that. Indeed, this is a common reason why escape doesn't occur, but it's actually not in the top 5, because the main obstacle to escape isn't the narcissist, but it's actually the victim themselves, who see certain obstacles occurring that causes them to believe that they just cannot escape. What are those obstacles, and what are the top 5 when it comes to the dynamic between a narcissist and intimate partner primary source? Number 5 is a sense of failure. The fact that the victim can't let go because they would feel that they've failed at the relationship, that they ought to have tried harder, that they owed it to themselves, that they owed it to the narcissist, perversely, that they should have put more effort in. If only they had done things differently, perhaps if they try to do things differently. This is often driven by the empathic trait of the desire to fix and heal and the narcissistic trait of pride. I'm not going to give up on us. I took those vows and I meant them. Accordingly, the sense of failure prevents the victim from undertaking that escape. It keeps them in situ. It keeps them flogging the dead horse. It allows the narcissist to continue to manipulate them because they don't regard it as appropriate for them to give up on the relationship. The concern about having failed means that they don't escape. At number 4 comes accommodation. The difficulties experienced with having somewhere to go is the 4th reason why people don't escape. I have consulted with thousands of people over the years who've come to me for help with regard to dealing with narcissists. And the most common interaction, of course, is that between narcissist and intimate partner primary source. And thus that has allowed me to compile this list of the most common reasons why escape does not occur. And one which I hear frequently relates to concerns about accommodation. This works in 2 directions. First of all, there is the concern of actually having anywhere to go. I'm not able to afford the place that I want to go and live. I can't afford to get a place of my own. My money's tied up in the house that's owned jointly by us, or it's in the name of the narcissist. I haven't got anybody that I can turn to in order to go and live with them. Thus, the absence of a suitable place to go prevents them from escaping. There's also another angle to the issue of accommodation, which is the reluctance to give up property which they like living in. The fact that they have contributed to the home, that they like their home, that it's a beautiful, impressive home, a cosy home, a place that ordinarily they would like to be. It's in a great location. It's handy for amenities, schools, whatever it might be. And thus they're driven by this idea of, why should I have to give up the home that I love just to allow that person to have it rather than me? Thus that narcissistic trait of pride rears its head once again. Accordingly, whether it is the concerns about actually having somewhere to live or a reluctance to give up what they've already got, concerns over accommodation form the 4th most likely reason why a person does not escape the narcissist. Number 3 is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what will become of that person if they leave. Fear of what the narcissist will do to them if they leave. Fear of retribution, fear of intimidation, fear of physical violence, fear of being smeared. Fear is a powerful weapon that the narcissist relies upon to manipulate, but also is a powerful driver in preventing that victim from escaping in the first place. If you are frightened of what might happen or what the narcissist might do, then you should obtain from the knowledge vault fear and the empathic victim to understand more about the role that fear plays in the dynamic and what you can do about it. The human brain likes certainty, and therefore, when you're breaking up a relationship, even if it's a bad one, it's one that you're certain of. You know what to expect. There'll be good days, there'll be bad days, but at least you understand what it is. By ending that relationship and going it alone, there's uncertainty. And your brain doesn't like that. And it generates anxiety and fear as a means of stopping you taking that step. Furthermore, you've seen how the narcissist behaves towards you in the relationship. You fear that it will only be 10 times worse should you escape them. And thus, fear is the third most common reason why people do not escape the narcissist. At number 2, it's money or finances. Often the narcissist is the sole breadwinner, or even if they're not, they've arranged things so that they control the finances, and thus the individual is fearful of the absence of money if they leave. I'll have nothing to live on. I haven't got any money. My money's tied up in the property. The narcissist controls it all. If I leave, it's going to be expensive for me to use lawyers to go through a divorce. I don't want to spunk all my money in that way. Accordingly, concerns over finances, whether it's an absence of them or possibly having to give money to the narcissist by way of divorce, if you are the one that's in a superior financial position, is something that repeatedly prevents the victim from leaving and comes in as the second most popular reason why people don't leave. What's number 1? Number 1 is children. The existence of children acts as a particular barrier to the victim escaping. I won't be able to look after them on my own. Life will be difficult. How will I manage to balance a job with looking after the children? Or, more usually, I don't want to break up the home. I want them to have that family environment, even though, of course, it's a toxic one. Concerns also about, well, if we split up, the narcissist is likely to get 50-50 on custody. And in such circumstances, I'm worried about what will happen to them when they're with the narcissist. At least if we stay together, I can keep an eye on things. I can protect them. I can look after them. These are some of the thoughts which exist with regard to those that consider escape but then think that they cannot do it because they feel that it will adversely affect the children and that they need to be there to protect them. Those are the top 5 reasons. What do they all have in common? Well, obviously, they are reasons which prevent or seek to prevent the victim from escaping. But what they actually all have in common is this: emotional thinking. The emotional thinking which is produced as a consequence of the addiction to the narcissist takes certain concerns and exaggerates them. It makes them seem like they're insurmountable. It makes it seem like they are a complete bar and obstacle to the achievement of escape. Take, for instance, the sense of failure. Why on earth should that stop you from leaving your abuser? Logically, it should not. You have not failed. They have failed. They are the ones that have made the relationship difficult. You did not. But your emotional thinking takes hold of your empathic trait of honesty and warps it to make you feel guilty, and thus you feel like you can't walk away. It gets hold of that desire to heal and fix and tells you, you need to stick at this in order to make it right, in order to make it come good. Again, that is emotional thinking toying with you. And the application of logic should be utilised to tell yourself, I have nothing to feel guilty for. I have not failed, and therefore that should not keep me in this relationship. In relation to accommodation, the narcissistic trait of pride is hijacked in order to cause you to think, why should I leave this lovely home because of a narcissist? Well, the fact is your life will be immeasurably better being away from a narcissist, and that far outweighs the grandeur of a property. There'll be other properties. They may not be as good, they might be just as good. But either side, ultimately, those points become irrelevant compared to the satisfaction and peace that you will obtain by being away from a narcissist. And your emotional thinking hijacks your trait of pride to make you think it's more important to stay in your grand house in this fantastic location than get away from somebody who's abusing you. That is not logical. On the other side of things, where you're concerned about accommodation, fearful that you're not going to be able to find anywhere to live, there's a lot more that can be done. For some people, you go and live in your car for a period of time if that means getting away from the abusive behaviour. Is it fair? No. Is it right? No. But these are not discussions or arguments about what is fair or what is right. They're discussions about what is logical to do to escape a narcissist that is abusing you. And if that means that for a period of time you have to go and live in your car or your sofa surf, then so be it. You can turn to family and friends to seek assistance. It might be the case that you have to go into a hostel for a period of time. But ultimately, there are steps that you can take and help that you can obtain, so it's not as bad as you first believed that it would be. Over time, through work and hard effort, you'll get yourself back on your feet. But your emotional thinking doesn't want you to do that. It wants you believing that you can't get anywhere to live, when in actual fact, you can. And you need to go to the logic of it and reminding yourself that no matter where you might end up, that's 10 times better than remaining in a house with somebody that's abusing you. If you have an entitlement to that property, you can take legal proceedings to realise your interest in it. If you don't have any such entitlement and you find yourself with nowhere to live, then you'll need to take steps to remedy that situation. But remaining in situ in a house with somebody that's abusing you just because that's a roof over your head is not the answer. That is not logical thinking. It is emotional thinking. When it comes to fear, as I explained, fear is generated as a means of emotional thinking to keep you in situ, to keep you locked into the dynamic with the narcissist so that you don't take the all-important step. Commonly, a fear of what the narcissist will do is completely misguided. Not because the narcissist is suddenly going to become a pussycat and be pleasant, but rather, if you apply a total no-contact regime, whatever the narcissist attempts to do will not have an impact upon you. It might not be straightforward, it might not be easy, but if you implement a total no-contact regime and so the narcissist isn't able to find you, isn't able to contact you, isn't able to message you, no matter how much their fury ignites, it's not going to visit your door or your ear. Thus, your fear of what the narcissist might do will evaporate because they simply cannot mete it out against you. And thus, that ought to be your aim, the implementation of a total no-contact regime so that the narcissist can't do anything against you and therefore there is nothing to fear. Also, your emotional thinking will exaggerate the capacity of the narcissist to retaliate. Although the narcissist will make efforts to try and draw you back in through an initial grand hoover, you will understand that this can't be sustained forever by a narcissist. And often, apocryphal tales about a narcissist plaguing somebody for a long time are actually not properly relayed in terms of actual evidence. They're exaggerated and misrepresented, often by unaware narcissists. Instead, by reading my book, No Contact, you'll understand the extent to which the narcissist will make the effort to try and draw you back in and hoover you thereafter, and the steps that you can take to minimise that impact upon you. Thus, you are able to neutralise emotional thinking's commandeering of fear. With regard to money, whilst it is hugely important, there are steps that can be taken. Again, you may be able to rely on your own 2 feet by gaining employment or turning to temporary assistance from friends or family. In other instances, you're legally entitled to money from the narcissist, and you should avail yourself of that opportunity. Do not be put off by the squirming, wriggling, or threats of the narcissist. Utilise the law to ensure that you are provided with what you are owed. In such circumstances, the concerns about an absence of money will either be removed or at least reduced. With regard to children, the fact is that there are steps that can be taken to ensure that they are protected irrespective of the fact that you're no longer with the narcissist. The simple fact is, keeping children in a toxic environment where they see their non-narcissist parent being abused is not conducive to their well-being. And whilst you might be martyring yourself under the auspices of trying to protect them, you're actually not helping them. The most effective thing that you can do is remove them from the narcissist and yourself from the narcissist, and thus, with you being removed from the narcissist, you will gain more of your coping mechanisms back so that you can be a better parent. That means that you will be a better parent when you're dealing with the children, and you will have more energy and ability to fight the narcissist with regard to custody issues, so that you might be able to prevent the narcissist from gaining custody, reducing the amount of contact that the narcissist has. Even if the narcissist continues to have contact with the children, there are steps that you can take to protect them as set out in my excellent assistance package, Child Defender, which means you need not sacrifice yourself or your children's happiness by remaining in a household with a narcissist, thinking you need to do that to protect them. There's much you can do which will enable you to protect the children as well as get away from the narcissist. Thus, all of those 5 boundaries to potential escape are driven by the presence of emotional thinking. But the application of logic, as I've just explained, and practical steps that you can take, which you can discuss further with me in consultation, will enable you to get around those common obstacles. Time and time again in consultation, I hear from people who are affected by those obstacles, and through explanation, insight, and cold hard logic, I'm able to detail to them the steps that they can take to remove those boundaries and achieve freedom. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.